Webster's dictionary defines fussy cutting as getting the perfect piece of fabric right where you want it in that perfect quilt. Well, as an applique artist and with these little scissors, I can fussy cut with the best of them to get those appliques just where I want. But what happens when I have that perfect piece of fabric that I want to do a pristine, precise patchwork with? I've got your answers. Let's get started. That is right. I'm going to teach you all today how to get the exact piece of fabric right where you want it when you're doing your patchwork pieces. Oh, and by the way, welcome to the show, everyone. I am Rob Appell from Michael Miller Fabrics. Welcome to Making It Fun. I have a blast teaching my little tutorials here roughly once a week. We'll call it Wednesdays if you're really following along. Again, I'm super excited that you are here. And as I dive into today's project, I am really excited because this is a brand new release from a long-time licensed designer, Sarah Jane. She's been with Michael Miller for years and we absolutely love what she does. Now, she's a children's book illustrator and she's got some bestsellers out there. Great job, Sarah. We love what you do. Now, so what I'm trying to say is that she's got this wonderful, cute little hand, and she does all of these wonderful fabrics featuring these great little kiddos. Let me just show you all a little bit better. This is actually a quilt kit that's going to be available in your local quilt shops very soon. Now, this fabric starts shipping the end of August, beginning of September era. So we're going to have this, like I said, in shops, on the bolt, and in kits and everything for you. But what I really want to do is talk about and break down how she did these cute little hearts in the pattern, right? And has all of her great little characters fussy cut right into the hearts themselves. So before we dive in, let's look at Sarah's line. This is fantastic. This is called Wonderful World, and it's by Sarah Jane Studios. And she put out this collection actually and been working on it for, and all of the designers, they work on these things for years and years, but she's been working on it over the last year, and she's a mother as well. And it's very important to her that she raises her children in a world where her kids are being taught to be inclusive to everybody around them based on whether it's the people's needs or skin colors or places where they live or whatever the environmental situations are. It's just really important. So she put out this line. Of course, it's super timely now. And so as we look through this, first of all, I just want to point out these wonderful little kids doing great little things together. Maybe they're eating different foods. Maybe they're having different headwear, playing, jump rope. This one here, there's a little person there in the wheelchair. So it's all about fun. It's all about kindness and loving and encouraging each other. And it's just a fantastic little fabric line. I shouldn't say little, it's a very big fabric line. She's got great fabrics here that you can see. And there's this wonderful one with the kids. She's got these great little sign language signs or, symbols of how we acknowledge each other, communicate with each other. Again, she's got these great little hot air balloons. You can see here, if I hold this still long enough, there's a great pillow panel, or cheater quilt panel, and that's what you saw in the center of our project for the day. So at any rate, she's got all of these great little symbols, all of these great little characters, but as you can see, a lot of her fabrics are directional, so all of the prints are heading in one direction, and she's left you some nice fussy cuttable negative space to work around as you're working around her imagery, but it's not always easy to do if you're not doing it as applique style. So let's get in here a little bit closer real quick, and I'm going to turn this quilt around so you can see the hearts all the better. Here's a perfect example right here. So you should have these two little folks here playing on the bicycle, and this here entire block or square is what is forming the heart shape. Now let's slow down a little bit. Maybe you saw in another video I did supporting Sew and Save in Racine, Wisconsin. They were doing the window heart quilt blocks. I gotta get all this straight in my head. This is to support all of the essential workers at the beginning of COVID-19, at the beginning of the pandemic. So anyways, I have a tutorial on how to make this quilt. Now, if I lay this down gently and calmly, you should be able to see maybe there's actually a seam in this one running straight through here. This is important. This is where the lesson plan starts, by the way. So you can see there's a rectangle and there was the corners lobbed off and another rectangle. Well, when Sarah Jane made her pattern, The seam for the heart actually runs through here, and I've diagrammed it to make life a little bit easier. And a lot of times I do this when I'm breaking down a pattern first. One, it gives me some practice time, and I'm doing it on scratch paper instead of on scratch fabric, because I don't have scratch fabric. I love all of my fabric, and I don't want to waste any of it. I have plenty of paper I'm willing to sacrifice. So when I broke down the diagram for this today, I drew it out so that I could see, I could have a concept. I just took a regular piece of cardstock, and I did use the cardstock in case I want to cut a window in this piece of paper. I want it to be rigid so that I can then move it or float it around on the fabric so that we can find where our design is, so that we can nail our cutting perfectly so that we get that great little fussy cut for patchwork. So in this particular layout, it's really important that you understand it's going to be easier to get the fussy cut because you do not have a center seam running down between these two rectangles. The rectangles in this one are made with a larger, it is a rectangle, it looks kind of square, but it's a rectangle. And then two more smaller rectangles. So that little rectangle has got the top portion of the heart and then two snowballed corners, same there. So this is what it breaks down into. This is what we're going for. And right here is the magic space we can fussy cut within or get our little characters within. So that being said, what I then do is I look at the pattern and I figure out what size square am I going to need. If it isn't real clear, a lot of times you can make a test square using another piece of fabric, or you could tape together your scrap paper if you want, of course, to get the sizing. So this particular one ended up being a 5 by 5 inch square. Let's go ahead and move some of this out of the way so you can see a little bit better now. And on my 5 by 5 inch square, what you can hopefully tell is I've gone in here now and on the ruler, oh, I've got a great idea. This is what happens when the editor is the cameraman, is the presenter, and he is thinking on the fly. And I'm just going to leave this right here in the video. So now you can hopefully see a lot better. What I've done is I've used my blue painter's tape first to mark off what would be the 5 inch square. Now I did it on the 5 and 5 marking. I actually left the line within so I can see right where it's going to go. I never tape on the line. I always want to be able to see the line because that's where our fabric's going to rest. Okay, and I'll show you how to cut this here in a moment. But what I do really want to point out, let's bring this back over here, is these little hearts, here's the one we were looking at, these little hearts are on point. So they're not on the square this way, they're actually up on the point this way. So when I made my fussy cut ruler, what I wanted to do was I wanted to mark out an area where I could actually move this around and find exactly where I want my little kiddos. People, fussy cut items, objects, whatever you're shooting for. Maybe you're doing I Spy stuff. So at any rate, what I have also accounted for here is in my seam allowance itself. So when I marked off the ruler, I first marked off for the seam allowances because that's what size rough cut square I needed. And then by taking my diagram like you see here, I was able to calculate where the vertical or the cross piece of tape is going to go. And when you're looking at this real closely, you probably can see that the tape is sitting just a little south of my line. Well, I did that to make sure that I didn't accidentally put anything into that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So on this line, which is just a visual marker, I'm going to go ahead and leave myself a little extra distance. Now, I'm going to show you how this works so that it makes a little bit of sense, and I will let you get back in your stashes and start fussy cutting up all your patchwork squares. Please forgive me. I believe I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this fabric ships in about a week or two to your local quilt shops, which means I got the quilt to handle and I got my wonderful fabric samples and my board to sell from, but I'm not supposed to cut that up. So I ran over to my stash, and a couple of weeks ago I did a really fun how to make the perfect pillow tutorial. Again, I'll put a link for that in the description, like the heart quilt I just showed you a moment ago, will be in the bottom here. And I was using our fantastic licensed fabric for our British racing cars, our MG fabric. And so I was sitting on the top of the stash. I ran over there. Perfect. It is also a directional fabric, so you can see all the cars are heading in the same direction. I want to be able to fussy cut around and get exactly what I'm after. So let me show you how this is going to work. Just going to grab real quick rotary cutter. We will need that eventually. So remember, we want our cars on point or our objects on point. So if I cut this right now, when I go to rotate this and it sits in the patchwork, the project, it's not going to look correctly. So what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to rotate and rotate till we get it just where we want. So you can actually see at the bottom of the square, I put the word design. So what I really want to do is I want to be able to rotate this just like this. And now I can technically see that the design is going to fit all the way with inside of my blue window. I actually kept the center mark on the diagonal right at my center point, so I could really line this up. And I also want to point out, you see the automobile pilot's head, also known as the driver. He is not going to be so close there that it possibly gets cut off later on. And I also then start to expose, and this is the other cool thing about this, you can also use this to choose what you're not going to show up in your little window. So as I move this here and here, keeping in mind there's going to be seam allowances everywhere, there's going to be a rectangle cut across here. So when I lay that out there like that, that's going to give me a beautiful little red convertible with a pilot ready to go. So as I get ready to cut this now, what I want to do, let me just make sure that you can all see nice at home. What I want to do is treat it just like I'm cleaning up another square. So if I'm doing these from here, I'm going to cut up, straight through that point and over. I am also trying not to cut much past the corners because I might want to use this for fussy cutting elsewhere. Now that that's been done though, you can see it will be very easy for me to rotate this. I'm going to waste some fabric so that you can see even better. Like I said, now you can really tell what's happening, okay? Now that I've gone ahead and rotated that, I can bring this down here to my 5-5 point. I can line up those lines just where I had them. And now when I come through here, I'm cutting again, straight through, and I have now positioned my little car driver right where he needs to be in order to be positioned within that heart shape. Quick reminder, when this gets cut, there's the beginning. That's going to cut across here. I'm going to lose a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. There's going to be a 1/4 inch across the top. So we have our little car perfectly positioned for this patchwork project. Wow, that's impressive if I do say so myself. So super simple tutorial today. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time and show you one of the tricks that we often struggle over. We see these beautiful patchwork quilts and we see this great fabric splashed right where the designer and artist want it, but we have a hard time figuring out on ourselves, on our own, how do we make that happen in our own project. So I hope this little tutorial today was a absolute blessing, a great help for you getting your patchworks perfect. Let me fold this quilt back and show you one more time the awesome quilt from Sarah Jane. Make a big old mess, bring this out just like this, and I will encourage you all to contact your local quilt shops real soon and ask them for this fantastic quilt from Sarah Jane. Oh yeah, and Michael Miller Fabrics. We'll see you real soon. What? Are you actually still here? That's fantastic. Make sure you check out some more of my other fabulous content right here on YouTube. I think it's terrific. Please subscribe while you're there and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss another moment of the fun.